Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everybody. How are all the art gurus out in Cyberland? Thank you all for joining me again and welcome. Now, I have become a little bit obsessed with monoprint since my last video on using the sage leaf, and I was cleaning my art supply cupboard the other day and I found this incredible bucket and I thought, oh my God, I could actually create something incredible with this bucket. Now, in case you're wondering what the item is, let me show you. Now, these are little pegs, if you'd like, I don't know their technical terms, of from frames that you would tighten each frame if it was a little bit loose. You would wedge it at the back of your frame. And when I came across the bucket, I thought, what could I create with it? And I remember sitting on my couch over and over again looking at this peg thinking, what does it remind me of? What can I do with it? What kind of shape could I create with it and therefore create monoprints? So in that inspired moment, out came again my trusty diary and art diary. Of course, this is not my personal thoughts, but what I wanted to do is I thought, what could I create with shapes? And so I started playing around with the underside of that particular peg, and the first thing that came into my mind was, oh my goodness, they actually look like little tiny bricks. Now, a big shout out to my favorite couple in Texas, USA, Chip and Jojo. The other inspiration that came through was German Schmeer. Now, for anybody out there who's watching house renovation programs, you would be all aware with what a German Schmeer is. Nonetheless, that kind of thinking then turned into my inspiration for creating the art. So as I didn't quite like, by the way, what happened here with those little pegs, but the following day I came out with, I changed the color, and thus the German Schmeer idea of using that particular shape like a brick. So creating an artwork like a brick. So that's basically the background in how I came to using that particular shape. So just to recap, it's basically this little peg. So whatever you've got around your house, believe me when I tell you, you could absolutely utilize it to create your own artwork. So hopefully that little story gave you an insight into my weird brain. Now from there, what I then thought about was, okay, I need to think about the design. It was far too easy just to create a brick pattern by stamping it all across. So then I applied a thinking process, is what could I utilize that particular shape and the design that I want to create. So I played around with those ideas for a little while until I came with one idea, which I'll walk you through once I show you how this process is applied. Now, from a material perspective, again, I really want to keep everybody, give you all an insight into the materials. From a tools, again, I'm using a 350 GSM Arches paper. In this particular instance, I've decided to go with a rough paper, and the reason for that is so that with this application I do want, and I discovered that as I was doing the print in my art diary, that I do want from each press that I make to have some irregularity. And this is why I say German Schmeer, that when you apply that process onto bricks, you want to have some bricks that come through, other bricks that fade out. And that's the whole idea with this particular monoprint and in using this particular shape. So the 350 GSM Arches paper, the rough paper, was just a much better process for that. Similarly, I'm using a red oxide and a cadmium yellow and a magenta acrylics to create my own particular type of red. The red oxide, which I'm absolutely in love with, is far too earthy, so I needed to bring it up into a higher tone, which is where the magenta comes in. Again, you can apply whatever colors you want, but the idea behind this particular color just worked well with that particular shape. So in my previous videos, as you've heard me all talk about before, consider the tool that you're using, the shape that you're applying, or the particular monoprint that you're creating, the color harmony, and this is again really important, and the color combinations. I chose to have a monochromatic print with this particular design. You might want to create a split complementary, an analogous, and try something or other, which I forgot the name. Again, colour harmony and colour combinations are really important, particularly with monoprints, because it adds more to your particular design. So keep that in mind. So let me set up and I'll show you the process with applying this little shape to a big piece of paper. Okay,
so
let's go painting.
all get started. Now, what you'll notice here now is that I have already started this particular monoprint with my little matchstick. I don't even know what to call it, to be quite honest, piece of wood. And a quick tip that I wanted to mention to everybody is that because I started this already the other day and I had to let it dry, and if you're wanting to come back to it, and because we're using acrylics, now just to show everyone my little plate of colour that I've mixed, it's really important that you get as close as you can to the colour that you've already got on here. If you don't match the colour, and by the way, it's very challenging to match the exact colour, but if you don't get to the exact colour that you've got on here, as you see, I've got that pattern there and that pattern at the top. If I apply this brand new colour now, once I complete this whole piece of paper, which is fairly large, the separate tones will stick out like a sore thumb, and I don't particularly want that to happen. So to remedy that is I'm going to apply this new colour to some of the less prominent little bricks around each particular section of the paper, and like that unify the whole artwork once it's completed. And eventually what I'll take it further to another level is to mix a more richer red, a dark rich cool red, and then just highlight some of the bricks around each particular section of the paper, so that I've got that interest. I want to maintain the viewer's interest. So again, just be mindful that if you are starting again the next day, acrylics don't keep like oils, so you do have to get to the tone as close as you can. Okay, so I'm going to apply my colour to the back of my little wooden peg here, and again, I've got a piece of paper in my hand. I'm going to wipe the sides. I really don't want any colour on the side, so I don't want it to bleed out, so be mindful of that. And I'm going to outline this particular shape with this new colour. It's a fairly slow process again, so I'm hoping you can see that and it translates through to the camera. And breathe through each particular press or print as you're going along. Don't overload your particular shape, no matter what you're using, whatever object you've got in your house. The key here is to not overload it and to take your time in creating each particular print. Now you'll notice, because I overloaded, I just did what I told you guys not to do. It's just gone far too close to that side there, but that's fine. These are good, happy accidents. And I'm not going to load the peg with any more colour. I'm just going to use as much as I've got there, and then again create that irregular pattern as I go out to the top side.
guys find that. Something different perhaps, or at least a small look in my creative process and the way that I utilised my object, or at least the object that inspired me, this particular small piece of wood. To recap the process, I wanted to just highlight to everybody that whatever object that you do use and utilise, please take your time. It is tempting to rush through this process, but once you understand what you're using and how to apply it, it's really important that you move through it with a loving intention. Otherwise, if you rush it, you will go into a totally different direction. Maintain your design, again, really, really important. Stand up, have a look at it from a different perspective. Again, if you need to walk out, do so, come back and see it with a new eye. And most importantly too, in this particular method or what I used, keep that big blob of paint moist. So use your water mister to keep it moist. Otherwise, acrylic paint tends to form like a skin on top of them, and that again will just ruin your whole process. So you don't want to go down that path. Thank you all for watching again. Please do comment and ask as many questions as you'd like. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do. And remember, create, paint and be you. I know there is an art guru inside of each and every one of you. Start the art conversation, start your art conversation, and my challenge to you is find an object that you are drawn to and inspired by and create your unique monoprints. Until next time,